To explore the way forward, I am joined by a very capable guest in Paul Scar, Liberal National Senator for Queensland, who has had a quite lengthy career throughout the PNG region. So he's the right person to ask about what works on the ground and what are the high impact activities that we can be engaged in as a country that will move the strategic dial. So thank you very much, Paul, for making time to be on the program.
Thanks.
Now, what did you learn in the time that you were working in PNG about what works and what doesn't work with our northern neighbour that should be informing Australian strategic decisions now?
Thank you very much. Well, I lived and worked in Papua New Guinea between 1999 and 2001. And I think the first point to note is, and I'm not sure all Australians appreciate this, but the people of Papua New Guinea feel incredibly close to Australia. And that is the best asset we have in the relationship. So that's the first thing to note. The second thing to note, I think, is in all of our interactions with Papua New Guinea, we must respect their independent sovereignty. That is something which is a great story, how they achieved national independence in 1975. And in all of our discussions with the independent state of Papua New Guinea, we must treat them with the utmost respect and respect their sovereignty as a nation. So I think those are two things which need to inform our relationship.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. We're also joined now by Terry O'Neill, who's a retired colonel, formerly seconded as the Australian military advisor to the PNG Defence Minister, and he brings a wealth of experience from that time. Terry, thank you very much for also joining us on the program. That's a really unique experience that you bring to this discussion. What should we be doing as a nation that is high value for deepening that relationship of trust with our Papua New Guinea colleagues?
Thank you. Look, I think I'm very fortunate to have served in Papua New Guinea in the Defence Force probably since about 1968, where I first went pre-independence as a platoon commander and worked with the Papua New Guinea Defence Force in the early days conducting patrols through the jungle and various remote areas of Papua New Guinea. And the thing I learned there at that point in time was the importance of being able to connect with local people, understand the culture, speak the language. We were unique because none of us in that platoon spoke English, or I did, but the same language. There's 800 different languages in Papua New Guinea, so it was a two-way experience. I was learning about operating in those conditions, learning a language which we could communicate with, and that's as important today as it was then. And since that time, I've returned again pre-independence and then several times after. And I think after independence, Australia lost the way a bit in maintaining that close connection with the individuals in PNG, as well as being able to engage on an equal level.
So what does losing our way look like, Terry? Oh, I beg your pardon, Terry. So what does having lost our way look like? And what would be needed to bring it back on course?
Well, I suppose the simplest example is the third time I was there was during the Bougainville situation. And I think we lost our way there because Papua New Guinea really needed support and help, not just people telling them what to do from afar, but really engaged in helping them manoeuvre their way through all the political and geographic situations they had to sort out. And they were on their own. They were only a young country and didn't have the experience at that stage. And I think we had an opportunity there to work with them to solve that particular problem. And I think going forward, we need to engage a lot more. We need to engage with the people, the individuals at every level, from community level up to the highest political level.
So, Paul, what should be the top strategic priority for Australia as it engages with PNG?
I think we've got to really focus on deepening those cooperation agreements between Australia's Defence Force and Papua New Guinea's Defence Force. I think that's absolutely crucial. The review that was released last week talks about us having northern defence bases. I think we need to give serious consideration to the cooperation with Papua New Guinea, meaning more Australian Defence Forces on the ground in Papua New Guinea and working very closely with the PNG Defence Forces. I think that's something which we can do. But again, it has to be based on a deep strategic agreement and understanding between the people of Papua New Guinea and the people of Australia. But I think there's a whole range of things we can do. I think we need to strengthen our cultural engagement with Papua New Guinea as well, because as I say, those people-to-people relationships are just so important. Sport, the Papua New Guinean love of sport, especially Australian sport, rugby league, is something no other country in the world can match. So we should be looking to deepen our relationships in that regard. We should be looking to mobilise our wonderful PNG diaspora located here in Queensland. Cairns called Little Moresby for good reason. There are so many Papua New Guinean nationals based in Moresby who commute between PNG and Australia. We should be looking to mobilise all of those connections and that history you spoke about, that deep history between Australia and Papua New Guinea.
So, Terry, what can you add to that? What should be the big picture strategic priority that Australia looks to achieve to make sure we are locking in that relationship for the long term?
Well, firstly, I agree with what was just said in terms of having to engage at all levels. And I think, you know, it's fairly obvious that Australia has failed to engage in the Pacific, as they should have done many years ago. But now we're on that right track. But to answer your question, the way we do it is I think we've got to look at how we've got to sort out our own priorities and vision and objectives as a country in relation to our dealing with the Asia-Pacific region and PNG in particular. I think, for example, on a defence level, we should be working together in the same way that we worked together with New Zealand. You know, we talk about ANZAC and that long tradition, and yet we seem to ignore our shared history with Papua New Guinea. And I think we need to strengthen that to the same level we have with New Zealand right now, through, as I've mentioned before, not only sport and at community level, but more integration, more exchanges, more understanding of each other, where somebody can pick up a phone and literally talk to their counterpart across the gap and resolve these particular issues. I think that we are in a quandary still. We haven't quite found the right direction, but we've got a lot of good people in Papua New Guinea who are ready to go. At community level, I'm working at the moment with communities in Papua New Guinea, and we're able to achieve a lot just by our connections.
Terry, Australia is in the process of negotiating this bilateral security treaty with PNG. Will it achieve what is needed in a big picture strategic sense, or do we need to be negotiating a firmer defence treaty?
I think we should be establishing a firmer defence treaty. I think we've got to actually really cross that gap and engage with Papua New Guinea on an equal basis. They should be sitting in Canberra with us, and likewise we should be sitting with them in Port Moresby. But more than that, you know, more working together in terms of the supporting the region with various crisis emergencies and so on that we encounter quite often. Thinking about our reserve in terms of a totally engaged but peacekeeping organisation throughout the Pacific, including Papua New Guinea and Australia. I think working in the area of peace and prosperity is the area we should focus on and engage at that level. So in terms of PNG, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say thank you so much for your expertise. Really appreciate the time from both of you tonight. Thank you very much.